Iceland's Nelson is unbeaten in mixed martial arts, and his submission of DeMarcus Johnson in his UFC debut last year only added to his positive reviews in the fight world. A longtime middleweight standout, Brazil's Santiago has won 13 of his last 16 bouts. And now as he enters the 170-pound weight class of the UFC, he expects to be better than ever. Coming up next, Jorge Santiago squares off against Gunnar Nelson. This is the UFC. This is Fuel TV. All right, let's get to the Bud Light tail of the tape for this welterweight collision between Gunnar Nelson and the Brazilian Jorge Santiago. You see Gunny Nelson still just 24 years old, a 2-inch height advantage for Jorge Santiago that mirrors his reach advantage against Iceland's Gunnar Nelson. Here is Bruce Buffer.
Ladies and gentlemen, this fight is 3 rounds in the UFC welterweight division. Introducing first, fighting out of the blue corner, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter holding a professional record, 25 wins, 10 losses. He stands 6 feet 1 inch tall, weighing in at 170 pounds, 12.1 stone. Fighting out of Boca Raton, Florida, by way of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Jorge the Sandman Santiago. And now introducing his opponent, fighting out of the red corner, a mixed martial artist holding a professional record, 10 wins, no losses, 1 draw. He stands 5 feet 11 inches tall, weighing in at 169 pounds, 12.1 stone. Fighting out of Reykjavik, Iceland, Gunnar Nelson! And when the action begins, our referee in charge, Mark Goddard.
Mark Goddard, your third man in the octagon here. Carly Baker to get us started here in round 1. And it really is amazing, Kenny, when you talk about Gunnar Nelson. He looks like he's getting ready for a training session. He's fighting in front of tens of thousands of people here.
Looks like he's getting ready to go to sleep, actually. I mean, stays very, very calm. He's a guy who comes from a karate background, actually, originally. So he's got a striking style that's unorthodox, similar to a Machida, but you add in his world-class grappling, and you have yourself an unbelievable fighter. This is a guy who beat Jeff Munson in a grappling competition in Abu Dhabi, so he's the real deal.
The fight clock is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Nice right hand there for Santiago. Follows up with a big knee.
Yeah, great knee from Santiago. And Santiago's a great grappler in his own right. A very experienced Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt.
A lot of success for Jorge Santiago as a middleweight, making his welterweight debut here tonight. Nice little switch kick there for Nelson.
Gunnar Nelson switching up his stances. Has to be careful, his hands a little bit lower, very low, I should say. And nice side kick from Gunnar.
Nelson with a nice following here in the UK. Certainly his last performance in Nottingham didn't hurt his status here in England.
When Nelson's in that southpaw stance, he's got to be careful with that right hand of Santiago, especially off those side kicks that he's throwing. Santiago's able to slip and throw that right hand. He could hurt him, and there's a big high kick, taking advantage of the low hands of Nelson.
So Santiago putting the pressure on early. Gunnar Nelson, a guy who really could make 155 with ease, prefers not to cut weight.
Without a doubt. You know, and this could be an advantage. He probably feels he's the faster guy out there. We've seen Frankie Edgar, who was the champ at 155 pounds, who easily made 145 pounds, but you know, that really could be an advantage for him, having that speed and not having to cut that weight.
His mentor, Renzo Gracie, has little doubt that Gunnar Nelson is a future UFC welterweight champion. Just amazed how quickly his pupil picked up the ground game.
What a beautiful entry on that high cross to double leg, and now it's Gunnar Nelson in half guard. Santiago almost got back to his feet, but this is where Gunnar Nelson wants to be, on top against Santiago.
Has a very quick shot, does Gunnar Nelson, and certainly knows what to do with it on the ground.
I've had the opportunity to see Gunnar Nelson in training against some of the best in the world, and I'll tell you what, that hype is very well deserved.
And a nice left hand there for Nelson as Santiago worked his way back to his feet.
Santiago still trying to find his range, still trying to get a handle on what Nelson's trying to do, and that unorthodox striking style can be confusing, but for Gunnar, he really is very low with his hands. Santiago has caught him a few times going backwards with his hands low.
A very significant test here for the undefeated Gunnar Nelson.
Yeah, if you beat a guy like Santiago, that's a huge win.
Santiago, in earning this third UFC stint, dusted a couple guys in Kansas recently with a knockout, as well as an inverted heel hook. A very versatile finisher, 23 finishes, 13 submissions, another 10 by knockout or TKO.
Here the hooks come, ready. Get ready for hands up.
Nice kick to the body there for Gunnar Nelson.
Gunnar Nelson doing a good job of just keeping Santiago on the outside. And then look for him to mix it up again as Santiago advances his position to look for that takedown.
Nelson continues to switch stances seamlessly and really relies on his footwork, Kenny, and his quickness. Perhaps why he keeps those hands so low, but he ate one there.
Gunnar now pressuring, trying to look for a takedown here against Santiago up against the cage. Santiago doing a good job of keeping that underhook active.
All right, slow down. Nice round. Just get your breathing going.
Right.
All right, just chill. Excellent. Just watch for standing in front of him, because he's loading up on the big shots. Yeah. When you change stance or you move sideways, he's getting confused. So no standing in front of him. And the takedown is there when you want it. You're having most success in your southpaw stance, closing with the left hand to the body or the left hand to the head. A little sip of water. A few more breaths. There you go. Okay, so same again. Switch stances, no standing in front of them now. We can feint or we can move sideways, but no standing in front of them.
Hold on, Gunnar.
Back here live at London's Wembley Arena as we get ready for round two. Jorge Santiago and Gunnar Nelson.
Some good advice in the corner of Gunnar Nelson from John Kavanagh, his coach from Ireland, offering some very good advice, not standing in front of him, moving side to side and keep switching those stances, try to confuse Santiago and encouraging him. He has the takedown when he wants it, and that's really where Gunnar Nelson needs to bring this fight, is use those strikes. Very nice left hand from Gunnar Nelson to set up the takedown.
And perhaps the most significant land for Gunnar Nelson right there with the left. Little slip there by Jorge. From Gunnar Nelson, who is now applying pressure early in round two.
Nice combination from Gunny there. Looking for the takedown now. Santiago defending pretty well here so far. Nice level change and nice double from Gunnar to finish. Now he's got to setting up a guard pass here with the hip smash. Gunnar looking for that pass, trying to posture up, giving Santiago just a little bit of space, but Gunnar Nelson is such heavy hips. And he's got a passing style that really wears on a guy from that bottom position.
And we drop a lot of superlatives when it comes to Gunnar Nelson's ground game. We also point out Jorge Santiago, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt in his own right, who, by the way, has never been submitted.
Yeah, that'd be quite a feather in the cap of Gunnar Nelson if he's able to submit a guy like Santiago. But right now, he's choosing position over submission right now, trying to wear Santiago down, score points on the mat. Nice short shots from Gunnar Nelson.
Nice left hand there. Deceptive throw from Gunnar Nelson.
And a nice short elbow as well. And this is where Gunnar Nelson wants to be here. Nice and tight. Staying in tight, just kind of wear on Santiago. Utilize kind of a wrestling strategy here. Try to wear him down for that third round. And Gunnar Nelson will start to bring it on later in the round. He's a kind of a slow starter, but Gunnar Nelson right now in control here in the second round. Another nice little elbow from Gunnar Nelson. Santiago needs to put his feet on the hips of Nelson and try to stand up. Playing in this close guard is just playing into the strength of Gunnar Nelson. Now Santiago trying to use that open guard, trying to create some space, but Nelson right back on top.
Yep. Under a minute and a half to go here in our second round. Beautiful left hand on the inside by Gunny.
Yeah, and it was threatened off the pass. He just pushed the legs out to the side and came with a nice shot to the face of Santiago. Now he's past the guard. And again, I can't stress it enough, to pass a guard like Jorge Santiago is extremely impressive. Not many people, you won't see many people do that. Gunnar Nelson has that kind of level of jiu-jitsu where he can pass a guard like that and really pressure and advance. And this really will break a fighter's will. And now he's mounted.
Beautiful transitions on the ground from Gunnar Nelson. Not a lot of wasted motion. A very efficient ground fighter.
Extremely efficient, John, as you mentioned. And this is the kind of stuff, as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, when you get mounted like that by another guy, it will break your will. And this sets things up in the later rounds now, you know, for Santiago, who will now be even more hesitant to not throw his hands as much. He's going to say, I cannot let this kid take me down and get superior position, because that's exactly what Nelson will do.
So the confidence continues to grow. A strong second stanza. Huge Gunnar Nelson here against Jorge Santiago.
Okay. All right, slow down, take some water. Rinse it and spit it. Rinse it and spit it. Okay, take a sip and swallow. Okay. Just use this time to breathe. Okay, we're 2 rounds up. He's going to go a bit wild. So we have to keep our movement going. Opposite stance, and the left hand is beautiful. Keep the movement going. You know the big hooks are coming out. Let's keep those hands high. Opposite stance, the left hand, and the takedown is there. Just get half guard and hang there.
Stand back, please, George.
Back here live on Fuel TV and Kenny Florian, I know you're a big fan of concise, clear instructions in the corner. A lot of good information being passed on to Gunnar Nelson there from John Kavanagh.
Without a doubt, John Kavanagh really offering some very good advice, keeping the strategy very much in the mind of Gunnar Nelson, keeping him calm. You know, and Gunnar Nelson has that style that's not, you know, the flashiest of styles, but it's this technical artistry on the ground, which is so impressive. And you can see it. He's just chipping away, and you don't think these are huge shots, but you can see the face of Santiago now really swollen. Nice combination from Santiago there, but you can see it. Those elbows really are taking its toll on Santiago.
And Santiago has landed a few reasonably big shots, but Nelson's chin has held up quite well.
Without a doubt, Santiago's finding success with that right hand. When Gunnar is in that southpaw position, Santiago really landing that right hand again and again.
And Nelson really with an uncanny ability, Kenny, to slow the game down. Still just 24 years old.
That's what's so impressive, John, is, you know, he's still so young, so much to learn. He's only going to get better. That's a scary thought for all the welterweights out there.
And as we've said in the past for a guy like UFC lightweight champion Benson Henderson, you better get these guys now, because once they start improving, they look borderline unbeatable. Gunnar Nelson again pressing forward here against Jorge Santiago.
Nice sneaky right hand from Nelson. Caught Santiago off guard. But now you can see Santiago very hesitant now to go forward, and that's because of those takedowns from Gunnar Nelson. Many times it's moves that you execute in the early part of the fight that wins you the fight later on. Gunnar Nelson finding that success early in this fight.
And mixes in an elbow there after some strong knees from Jorge Santiago. And just as John Kavanagh suggested, Santiago getting a little bit wild, flailing those arms here.
Yeah, and now that Santiago is starting to get a little bit more aggressive, now is when Gunnar Nelson needs to go back to those takedowns. With that forward pressure from Santiago, Gunnar needs to change levels and hit those doubles. And that's what he's doing. He's kind of baiting him. It's all these strikes, it's all these setups to get Santiago to come forward so he can set up those takedowns.
And when it comes to Nelson and the diversified striking game, you really don't know what's coming. Switches stances as much as any fighter we've seen in the UFC.
Without a doubt. That's that karate background, John. Absolutely, very unorthodox style to deal with.
But Jorge Santiago having some moments here. He landed a big right hand just moments ago. How about the uppercut there from Nelson?
Yeah, that hurt Santiago. Now a big right hand from Santiago as well, but Santiago looks like he's still hurt. Yeah, he's hurt.
Santiago, a warrior, hanging in there as Nelson continues to apply pressure.
Yeah, Santiago was bringing it there as he should here in this third round, showing that warrior spirit, but now it's Gunnar Nelson in control here with that tie clinch. Gunnar needs to look for those elbows off of that half tie. Right over the top. He can land it. Santiago very tired, John, now. And that's coming from that earlier ground work. Dealing with that guard passing style of Gunnar Nelson really wears on you.
Another huge uppercut. How about Gunnar Nelson, man? The landing percentage, just outstanding.
Yeah, no real wasted movement. When he commits, he commits. It's not these crazy combinations of 3s and 4s. That will come with time, but he's very precise, as you mentioned, John.
And you make a good point. He doesn't kill you with combinations, but when he throws a strike with something behind it, it almost always lands. Big right hand behind the ear there for Nelson. Just another day at the office for the still undefeated Gunnar Nelson.
Yeah, Gunnar Nelson really possesses an excellent blitz. And again, you know, very similar style to Lyoto Machida, which we know has given a lot of great strikers problems. It's not this high volume type of striking, but it is efficient and effective.
And his chin also appears to be a weapon. Some huge shots landed for Santiago. And Gunnar Nelson needs a huge right at the end of the fight from Santiago. But perhaps too little, too late. Wow.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, he has a tremendous chin. He took some huge shots from Santiago with that right hand, and Gunnar was still staying in front of him. And wow, what an excellent fight.
All right, the move of the fight. is brought to you by Metro PCS 4G LTE for all.
Well, Gunny showed some good success with his striking. It was those takedowns and his groundwork that really put him in control in this fight against Santiago. Precise, ground and pound, efficiency, no wasted movement. Good strategy, but look at this shot from Santiago as the bell rang here. He rang Gunny's bell as well.
And 30 more seconds, things could have gotten a little bit interesting there. Don't forget, we want to know what you think will be the best move of the night. Tweet and let us know. Use the hashtag MetroMove and tune into the UFC post-fight show on Fuel TV. Coming up next, the official decision, Santiago and Nelson. Stay with us on Fuel TV. Back here live in London, England for UFC on Fuel TV 7. Sponsored by Bud Light. Here we go. All right, the question is, has Gunnar Nelson done enough to remain undefeated? Bruce Buffer has the answer.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 3 rounds, we go to the judges' scorecards for a decision. The judges score the contest 29-28, 29-28, and 30-27, with a winner by unanimous decision, Gunnar Nelson.
Very nice win for Gunnar Nelson. Santiago, no joke. Santiago came on very strong in that 3rd round. Wasn't enough. Nice win for Nelson.
Yeah, Santiago certainly game in defeat, but the headlines continue for Gunnar Nelson. Speaking of headlines, we are inching closer to our UFC interim bantamweight championship. Renan Barão putting the belt on the line, also putting a 32-fight unbeaten streak on the line as he takes on that man, the 22-year-old Michael McDonald, who has won 8 straight in his own right and looks to move to 5-0 in the UFC and also become the youngest champion in UFC history. Some great action thus far from London's Wembley Arena.